Hello and welcome to EURACTIV's Agri-Food podcast. I'm Natasha Foote, and here's your weekly update on all things agriculture and food in the EU from EURACTIV's Agri-Food news team. This week, interviews with Ukraine's Deputy Agricultural Minister and with an expert from Romania. So hello and welcome to the Agri-Food podcast. It's a very lonely Agri-Food podcast this week. It is just me, I'm afraid. So sorry, you're going to have to just cope with one voice this week. But for very good reasons, to be fair, because Yulia's actually on her way. She's in the middle of moving to Brussels. So we're all pretty excited about that. So for all of our listeners, Yulia will be based in Brussels from next week onwards. And we're very, very excited and happy to have her with us. So I will excuse her for that. And Gerardo's actually in Disneyland. So I'd say that's a pretty good excuse. But don't worry, I'm here, got you covered for all the major news that was going on this week. And this week, of course, well, the same as last week, the main agricultural news this week is still all about these import bans. So last week's podcast was actually about that. I do invite you to check that out if you want a little bit of background. But basically, a couple of weeks ago now, member states kind of on the neighbouring Ukraine, but we call them frontline countries with Ukraine, implemented a number of unilateral bans on the import of agricultural goods from Ukraine. Now, this is because a number of measures taken by the EU saw an influx of agricultural goods into these frontline countries. And this has caused a lot of pressure here. It's driven the prices down. Farmers have been very concerned and raising concerns about facing bankruptcy, things like that. So there was an Agri-Fish Council meeting this week, so a meeting of EU agricultural ministers. And naturally, this was a key topic. There was a discussion that took place behind closed doors, but luckily we've got you covered because we had a few sources inside the room who told us what went on. And interestingly, so the Commission, there's been talk about this second package of support, a financial package. This comes from the agricultural reserve of the EU's Common Agricultural Policy. Now, this was already mobilised back in March, 56 million out of the 450 million that's available. But just after, about 2 days after, the countries decided to ban the import of these agricultural goods, the Commission announced a second package of 100 million euros. There's still not yet any details about how this will be divvied up between the 5 frontline countries. But there was a discussion about this at the Agri-Fish Council this week. And interestingly, actually, it seems that the Commission has actually linked, basically making this funding conditional on the countries dropping their bans. So according to a source inside the closed meeting, they told us that the commissioner, the agriculture commissioner, Janusz Wojciechowski, who was there present at the meeting, stressed member states will need to lift these measures in order to receive the support. So that was the kind of discussion that was going on this week, and lots of other discussions and bilateral conversations going on about these bans and the disruption that it's causing. So to hear a little bit more about the other side of how this is impacting, we actually spoke with Ukraine's Deputy Agricultural Minister, that's Markiyan Dmytrasevych, and he told us a little bit about how the bans have been received in Ukraine, the impact that it's had. So I asked him about the message that he had to these EU frontline countries, and this is what he had to say.
The main message is that Ukraine, we understand everything what happens in our neighbor countries. We do appreciate the amount of support and help, in particular in terms of solidarity lanes, which these countries provided to Ukraine, to especially in these times when grain corridor was not operational. We do understand the struggles that face our neighbor European farmers because of world prices on the grains. You know that in the beginning of this year they dropped, and we understand that not only Ukrainian farmers but European farmers have a lot of problems. But at the same time, in Ukraine we have a war, and this grain export is crucial for us, not to earn money, not to gain something additional, but to survive. and we expect that we will find some compromise, and we will achieve some agreement together with the European Commission and European structures, because we understand that this is the only legal way to find the compromise together with the European Commission.
And so how do you feel talks are progressing then, in your view? You're hopeful about this? Do you think there's anything more that the Commission can do to help these talks progress? What's your feeling right now in terms of the discussion and the kind of the spirit of the discussion?
We do understand that there are some suggestions from European Commission, in particular additional financial support for European farmers. From our point of view, it's a very good message to European farmers, and we do hope that there is some space for compromise between Ukraine, European Commission, and neighbor countries.
And you don't have a feel of the kind of timeline of how those talks are progressing right now? From our side, we feel that it will take a few weeks to have a final decision to reach a final compromise. Okay. And so do you have any concerns that these bans with the neighbouring countries, the bans that they imposed, do you have any concerns of how that might impact relations now, but also maybe in the future?
I'm sure that we find compromise because, we have the same principles, the same vision with European Union and with our neighbor states. But the only concern from my side is that Russia uses our discussions for their political aims, and they just use it to push us in what we have already mentioned on grain corridor negotiations. It's the worst part of these discussions.
Yeah,
we don't have to give Russians some space, some terms to push additional Ukraine.
Yeah, and so you feel like those bans are basically playing into Russia's narrative, basically.
Basically, they are trying to use it. Everybody understands it. So the main thing is that everybody understands it. And as soon as we will have this compromise and we'll end this discussion, it will be very helpful for us in terms of grain corridor negotiations.
And of course, I mean, we talk a lot about the imports from Ukraine to the EU, but exports from the EU to Ukraine has also massively increased. And I was wondering, maybe you have a comment on the impact and the value that has also brought, both ways.
It's naturally that we import a lot for European Union. The reasons are also understandable. The blockade of seaports, which was not only export route but also import route for the goods to Ukraine, and it's very natural that the European Union becomes one of the main trading partners. We do, due to the war, due to the damages that were done to not only agriculture sector, but whole economy and imports. We do understand that we have to import fuels, we do have to import fertilizers, seed materials, fruits, vegetables, in terms of destruction in the other southern regions where this basically vegetables and fruits were grown. So it's just a natural process, as it is very natural that we export our grains using these on-land routes and solidarity lanes.
So how did this all come about? Well, to get an idea of what exactly is going on in some of these frontline countries, I spoke with Romanian agricultural expert Cezar Gheorghe, who's been helping to advise the Romanian government since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And of course, Romania has been one of the most impacted countries here. So what were the factors that led up to this moment?
I would say that our farmers made a terrible mistake in the months of, let's say, May, July, because they didn't sold the commodities. They are expect, like every farmer in this world, high prices, never ending, skyrocketing, and so on. But once the commodities from Ukraine found a way to the lines through the, let's say, the grain passage that goes to inspection Istanbul, the price started to decrease. In that moment, they were impacted in the first instance by the cost of logistics, because all the logistics from Romania are diverted to the Ukrainian flows, because they pay better than to Romanian market. So in these terms, I would add that the cost of logistics increased with 70% per ton of goods. Nevertheless, the disponibility of this, let's say, logistics unities, call it trucks, rail cars, and barges, has disappeared. So it's hard to find access. Moreover, that support being the, let's say, the only reliable and sustainable from the Black Sea Basin, start to become very crowded with the Ukrainian flows, and the farmers need to sit roughly between 3 and maybe 7 days to discharge the goods in the port. And step by step, like that, the farmers start to accumulate debts, because they were not able to pay the debts for the input that they purchased during the autumn of 2021 and the spring of 2022. And also they were somehow impacted by the fact that they don't have access to the market. The access to the market, what means? The crowd from the port, the disponibility of logistics, and the cost of logistics. Moreover, many processors from Romania gather the Ukrainian flows due to the discount on prices, and effectively in Romanian market, speaking about the internal market right now, 3.8 million tons of goods, of Romanian goods, were replaced by 3.8 million tons of Ukrainian commodities, and this create a high impact on the market. Yes, from here onward, start the autumn of 2022, when the farmers need to purchase input to and finance the hectares with high cost due to energetic crisis provoked by Russia. And even so, the farmers strongly believe that during the winter, because this is the habit everywhere in this world, the price will increase, which was not, let's say, happen. And the farmers still sit with some commodities on the stocks. All in one, Romania will remain for the next crop with at least 1 million tons of wheat, will remain with at least 1 to 1.5 million tons of corn unsold, plus 400,000 of sunflower seeds, plus 400,000 tons of rapeseed.
So in your view, I mean, did we see this coming? Was there a way to predict this fallout?
Well, I would say that I, through my analysis and consultants company, I offer analysis and consultants on this matter since 6th of February 2022. And I foresee every step how it happens from the very beginning, including this of Ukrainian, this impact on the Ukrainian farmers. But apparently, not all of them pay attention on this. And many farmers from Romania, they don't know yet that they are bankrupt today, and they continue to finance the crops because the prices were dumping. Of course, the market come back at the values prior to the war. It's normal to be like that. The world need to be fed, and they don't realize today what's going to happen in the next. They floating along the wave.
So, looking to the future, what are your predictions for the situation?
My problem is that the Russians will close the corridor in 18th of May for sure. They will do that. And they export through the grain passage roughly 28 million tons. Out of these 28 million tons, will search through the solidarity line to be dispatched, and 40% of this will come through Romania. And keeping this number in mind, I will reframe a bit how it was prior to this moment. 32 million tons were dispatched through the solidarity lines till now. Out of these, 14 millions, 1/4, were dispatched via Romania. So on the top of 14 million that cross already, we'll have the next season another 12 million. That leads us to an amount of 25 to 26 million tons. If we add here the Romanian flows that are designed for export, will go easily to 48 million tons, which is a kind of mission impossible because Constanța port can't handle this amount. Constanța port, in the best option of logistics, and the ships aligned and good days for working, could handle maximum 33, let's say in excess 34 million tons. So it will be a huge pressure, a huge, let's say, rock that will come on Romania. And apparently nobody want to pay attention on this.
So what, in your opinion, are the solutions that we should see to fix this problem?
As a business person, I'm very pragmatic. I would say that I'm not struggling for the money from the Commission. Okay, they're good, they're okay, they will calm somehow the farmers for the time being, but the solution is not this one. My solutions are the following. Apart of the restricting the import, let's say put a number in tonnage of the transit that will cross through here, and also put some rules regarding the usage of logistics, of Romanian logistics, because if all the logistics will go to Ukrainian flows, we don't have logistics for ourselves. I understand the position of the European Commission that said that they will pay attention to the logistics, but you can't do this overnight. The trucks need to be built, the rail cars need to be built, right? Moreover, even when they send ammunition and tanks in Ukraine, they build first, they manufacture first, right? And because the European Union should harvest also in the same time, I assume, and they need also the logistic for themselves. So it will be a process. Also need to be let's say somehow to develop the infrastructure of Romania, the rail lines, the roads, because every day crossing so much tonnage on wheels will destroy the poor shape of the Romanian roads. The rail lines didn't count too much. We have an average speed back in 2022 of 30 kilometers, 30 kilometers per hour per train of commodities. So we are not in a happy situation right now, but I would like to foresee some solutions on the long term, because there in Ukraine will never end so quick. And even so, my assumption is that the Russian will never give up the territory that already taken. Ukraine more or less will remain with Odessa, Pivni, Chornomorsk, and those will be, let's say, somehow supposed to get bombed by the Russians. So the future is still through here, through Poland, through Hungary, but need investment.
So that's all from us this week. And this week, like every week, the EURACTIV Agri-Food podcast was produced by EURACTIV's Agri-Food team. This week, it's just Natasha Foote, with the technical support of Egby Kiori. You can also find this podcast on all major streaming platforms. That includes Amazon, Apple, Spotify, and Stitcher. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter so that you don't miss the latest news from the EU. My name's Natasha Foote. Thanks so much for listening, and see you next week.